Welcome to Metaphysical Monday. Welcome, welcome, welcome in. Again, I can only see people that are tapped into the live from YouTube here on Kolagraphy TV. If you are on Facebook, Denim D'zines, I cannot see your comments or that you're present. So I just want to, there's someone on that side watching. I want to welcome everybody in and everybody that will be tapped in. And I'm going to just, I'm going to take a few moments before I get started. How's everybody doing tonight? My name is High Priestess Sister Kola Soje, Align Zinga Joseph. If two. Yeah, that's my, I don't use that name a lot, but if two is light, that's also a part of my name. In every initiation, a name adds. So I just want to thank everyone for coming in. I'm hoping to get calligraphy on point. You know, I'm gonna have to take some time to try to find my audience. Um, if you are tapping in on calligraphy and this is your first time coming into one of my live streams, I know it's a lot going on this page. It's a lot as far as, you know, um, maybe subject matter or, you know, me doing readings and all this other stuff. Just know that this channel is geared to spiritual elevation. I deal with esoteric topics. I'm an oracle, 20 plus years. So yes, sometime you will see readings. But I build on, when I was on Souljet Tarot, you know, I was building on landscape, some other type of things. I don't know what's going on with this phone. Okay, that's the end of the music because I have to unlock this phone and I'm not doing that. So good. We don't need no music. I didn't get that. Could you try again? I need to cut this phone off. Double confirm. You want to power off this device? Yes. Okay. Sorry about that, you guys. So I guess I can go ahead and get started now. I'm gonna start with my singing bowl. Actually, put it here. And again, this is sound medicine. To the first chime is to center the room. And go ahead and take a deep breath. Breathe in through your nose and hold. I want you to release all your stress, pain, anxieties, and worries, and just blow it out to the universe when you hear me ring the chime. Now, this particular bowl I'm using tonight is for the root chakra. Okay, so this is dealing with, you know, us on a base level, our primal instincts and our security and, you know, things of that nature, our ancestral line, you know, our sexual energy, some of those lower vibrations when we talk about the shadow resides in the root. So I want us to go ahead and clear that and release, clear some of the blockages we may have in the root or some of the imbalances, and just go ahead and take a deep breath and just focus on releasing. Okay, releasing all of the energies that no longer serve you. Go ahead and take a deep breath through the nose and hold it. And when you hear the chime, release slowly. And one last time, relax your shoulders, everything in your face. Yeah. And again, take a deep breath. Inhale through the nose. And if you're feeling hella good, blow out some of that good chi when you hear the chime. Ashe, slowly. Okay. So tonight, the way I want to start devotion, welcome in. I see somebody in. I can't see who it is. You can always leave a comment. Welcome, welcome. But tonight I'm gonna start with my devotion is gonna be a one card pull because I want to go ahead and get into the bill because it's a lot to cover. It's a lot, as in it's a lot, and it's heavy. You know, I don't want to make the live too long, but I do want to I want to cover this information. I'm also going to give a trigger warning with it as well. Okay, so let's see what spirit is giving us. This is an oracle pull, and the oracle pull is going to be our devotion. I'm using the Osho Zen Tarot deck. If you're interested, Osho Zen Tarot is just like, next level. I like it because it goes really deep, not on the superficial stuff, but it kind of, gives us a little bit more. Oh, I'm pulling out sorrow. That's not the card I wanted to see. But since I do see that, yeah, there's a lot of sorrow going on right now. This shows a man that's in grief, you know. There may be some of these people that's getting the karma. This karma is karmaing right now. It's on overdrive, okay? But whatever the case, if it's people that may have lost loved ones or you may be going through sorrow for many different reasons, I just want to send some positive energy to that. I want to tell you to take your time with grief because I just came out of a period of grief myself. And yeah, be easy with yourself. Somebody is not sleeping at night. This is like, and I'm not here to do an oracle read tonight, you guys. I mean, I'm about to get into the gatekeeping of the shadow. But since that came out, I just wanted to send positive vibes to the people who may be going through heartache of any kind. Yeah, there may be some of those celebrities too right now. They like, oh my God, you know. But anyway, the card that we pulled is consciousness, so that's the one I'm gonna read for the room. I didn't want to make sorrow card of for everybody, so we're gonna get into consciousness, and then right from there, I'm gonna go into my build, and I'm just kind of aimlessly. I need to use my table of contents because this is a different deck. It's not like the traditional completely. So give me a moment. And we're gonna go into, oh, here it is. Okay, our card of the day. Now this is an oracle. I'm gonna read the oracle form of it as a message for the night, the message for the evening, the message for the week, however you take it as it resonates. Okay. So we got consciousness. I think that's interesting. Uh-oh. I think that's interesting because this is the path we're on. We're on the path of becoming more and more conscious, more and more aware. So let's see what consciousness is. When you choose this card, it means that there's crystal clear clarity available right now. Detached, rooted in deep stillness that lies at the core of your being. There is no desire to understand from the perspective of the mind. The understanding you have now is existential, whole, in harmony with the pulse of life itself. Accept this great gift and share it. Okay, so sharing the consciousness. We come from the unknown and we go on moving into the unknown. We will come again, and we have been here thousands of times before, and we will be here thousands of times again. Our essential being is immortal, but our body is our embodiment is mortal. Our embodiment is mortal. Excuse me. Our essential being is immortal, but our embodiment is mortal. Our frame in which are our houses, the body, the mind, they are made of material things. They will get tired. They will get old. They will die. But your consciousness, the thing beyond mind and body, something that goes beyond everything, that is eternal, that comes into the expression and goes again into the unknown. This movement from unknown to known and from known to unknown continues for eternity unless somebody becomes enlightened. Then that is his last life. Then this flower will not come back again. This flower that has become aware of itself need not to come back to life because life is nothing but a school in which to learn. He has learned the lessons. He is now beyond delusions. He will move from the known for the first time, not into the unknown, but into the unknowable. Okay, so that was a heavy message. I didn't even know it was that heavy. Take it as it resonates. Um, but it is speaking to this space that we come into that goes beyond the mind and the body. So I want you guys to just give me a moment because I need to blank out just for like a few seconds and give me 1 second. Okay, you guys, I do apologize. My allergies are bothering me, so I needed to grab something. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get into the bill because I want to go ahead and get through it. So, what are we building on tonight? We're talking about still in Duality series, and this is about the gatekeeping of the shadow. Let me get comfortable. I wanted this live to be comfortable. Um, and it does come with a warning. Like I said, I'm gonna get a little bit closer in. Um, I just want to just explain a little bit because I think there's been some misconceptions. Um, and if it's not misconceptions, it's definitely some energies that may not comprehend fully or they don't want to comprehend fully or whatever it is. But there may be more misconceptions than anything about what I'm about and what this channel is about. Yes, I am a priestess, but I'm not necessarily recruiting people or anything like that. I'm not here to indoctrinate anybody or to um take you away from what it is that you vibrate with and what you're, whatever you believe or whatever you subscribe to. This is Soul Jet Healing, being a conscious outcast. The Kolagraphy TV network is not only about spiritual soundness and mental liberation, or however you want to flip that around, liberation, um, mental soundness, spiritual soundness, however you want to put those, but that's what I'm about. And also, we deal with critical thinking. So, if you're a person that has issues being able to think critically, or that's something that's a challenge for you, or certain things make you upset when it comes to examining the self, then this may not be a live that you want to watch because in order for us to become conscious and to grow and to elevate, then there has to be some level of self-awareness, self-accountability. If we want to see change in our world, then we have to be willing to make changes. Um, there's a lot of things that I can share, but I've been understanding that a lot of people don't really receive certain things that I bring. They don't receive me because, for one, I'm a woman, and I know that women of intelligence are women who has some form of what people feel is power. I don't know, it's relevant to what I'm talking about. It's it's not necessarily welcome. The reason I'm still here, even though I've lost viewers for different reasons, when I don't want to even get into that. but I'm still here for the few people that like to dive deep like me, and they want to hear what I have to say. So even if it's 9 people, I'm here for the 9, and that's all I can say. I don't know how this is going to be taken, but we're about to go ahead and peel into it. And what we're talking about tonight is, or what we've been talking about, is the shadow side of human nature. We've been talking about um, duality. Everybody has a shadow. You may have to go back a couple of lives, and if you missed some of those, there's some great lives on there. Check them out, and videos about different things. But in this in particular, my last 2 lives, even the Tarot Talk Thursday, I built on the introduction of gatekeeping the spirit or the shadow. Now, this is an interesting conversation because it's hard to it's no way we can examine what we call perceived evil in the world, or our nature, human nature, what we call moral and immoral, if we have the inability to look and examine ourselves and look and examine both sides of the coin of human nature, of human nature. Now, I was late coming on tonight. I just got to say that, shout out to my Libras. I could not make up my mind about nothing tonight, like nothing. I'm happy I wrote out my stuff earlier, my notes, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with anything. I need some help taking these braids out, really. But it was crazy. But so, and even that's part of my shadow energy. Um, just me and time. It just me and time. I have a different sense of timing. I don't know. Even my favorite celebrities, Erica Badu and Lauren Hill, that was my girls, and they seem to always be late too. So I don't know if that's an artist thing or a spiritual thing. We just are just a ninja thing. But anyway, let me go ahead, and I wanted to start every duality series with this. When we talking about darkness and talking about the shadow and talking about, people call it evil, but I don't take it there. I take it there when it's appropriate. But what I mean is, the shadow doesn't necessarily start off in the form of being evil. Darkness doesn't necessarily mean evil, but it's just that dark always have a connotation where people want to, attach evil to it, and that's, societal stuff. So I'm gonna make sure we're clear on that. The shadow and darkness is what I speak to, but then I also go into how it becomes, this monster, right? But or how it can be if it's not checked. So I say this in every live since I started the shadow, and I think this is like the third one. So I just want to start with this because this is for people who wonder, like, why is there evil in the world? Why is there darkness? Why is there, why are things the way they are? Are people that deny it altogether. It says the shadow can't be eradicated, only suppressed. The shadow cannot be eradicated, only suppressed or denied. It's suppressed by indoctrination, social taboos, and cultural and familiar structures. The gatekeepers of the shadow manipulate our minds and emotions using fear tactics, bullying, incarceration, abuse, embarrassment, and whatever else you want to put in the blanks. So basically, this is my definition of it. I'm sure there's more you may be able to add or whatever or share, but this is where I'm at with it. The shadow cannot be eradicated, only suppressed or denied. It's suppressed by indoctrination, social taboos, cultural and familiar structures. The powers are the gatekeepers of the shadow manipulate our minds and emotions using fear tactics, bullying, incarceration, abuse, and embarrassment. Okay, and witchcraft. Now they'd be like, "You a witch." So what I've gathered about witches, I think anytime you're a woman of power, or a woman that deal with spirituality, then you're automatically a witch. Okay, so anyway, the spiritual veil is thin and becoming more thin day by day. Right now, we are in the fall season, and this is the fall equinox. And this is the beginning part of our year when the spirit world and even the so-called dark energy is more presently felt. We are in a new world as we are used to people in our society operating in a artificial form of light. Okay. So I'm saying we are in a new world now. And the way we've operated in the past is watching people operate in our society, in our families, friend circles, even just people every day that we deal with in church, in whatever. We've been operating, or the people have been operating on a false sense of light. Okay. So, or an artificial form of light. And I'm speaking to that because the shadow is always denied, right? Nobody wants to be akin to their shadow. Some even use, no, I'm not going to go there. I put this joke in there, but it's a bad joke. So um, I was just going to say that a lot of people hide in with the sheep. You know, they cover themselves in sheep's clothing, you know, but the wolf cannot be denied. The wolf cannot be denied. The energy of the wolf is going to be ever present, even in a flock of sheep. Okay. You may not see it readily, but go beyond the gate and you'll see exactly what's in the gate. And I think that's what I called this live tonight. I can't even remember it. I think it's called what's hiding behind the gate. Now, like I said, the wolf cannot be denied. This generation keep telling us over and over again that they're on demon time. Some of the people out here watching, you know, be on demon time. You know, you be on demon time. But behind the gate that house the shadow, this is where the demon time exists. It's like let me say this again. They're on demon time and they keep telling us, but some of y'all are also on demon time, but it's behind the gate that house the shadow. So some of the demon time people that partake in certain activities is behind the gate that houses the shadow. But people in this generation, and this is what I want to go back because I don't want to get it confused. I spoke to people in a society that I grew up in. They operated on an artificial sense of light. Okay. We've been operating on an artificial sense of light because that's considered goodness. That's considered consciousness in, you know, in the form of denying the shadow. And so you see these artificial forms of light outwardly in what we project or want other people to fall in line with, but then there's still, you know, the shadow's always been here. It cannot be denied. It cannot be suppressed. The presence of the wolf is always there. It just, if you have the keen eye or ability to see that energy, to see that we, you know, the Bible call it discernment, you know, and that's not like something new, you know. So intuition, being able to read the energies that's in people, but because we just took, you know, just took this on this persona that everybody is wholesome, it's supposed to, I don't know. It's hard to even it's madness. It's madness. It's like, let me keep going. But people in this generation are extremely comfortable operating in the shadow without ridicule, shame, or penalty. And I've said that before, but I want to continue to say that. So as we go on to the next thing, you know what I'm speaking of. Okay. So is there anything I need to go back over with that? I've said this before. I've just kind of went over it again. And so what's going on is it's like when I talk about this shadow, I mean the shadow is it's nothing new. You know, we're born with this. The shadow is just as old as you know, creation itself. You can't have one without the other. We have light, we have darkness, we have so-called good and so-called evil. And you know, just it's the polarity or duality in opposites, you know, which duality and polarity have two different meanings. Shout out to Kefra. But people in power controls the flow or exposure or disclosure, the consequences or non-consequences of what is lawful and unlawful when pertaining to moral codes of conduct in our society based on how it suits the agenda of those in power. I'm gonna say that again. These are all my words, and this is my first time reading over the notes. I was just writing off the head. People in power controls the flow, exposure, disclosure, The consequences are non-consequences of what is lawful and unlawful when pertaining to moral codes of conduct in our society based on how it suits the agenda of those in power. Meaning, if there's someone righteous in power, then we're going to have our so-called righteous, or someone that has a different moral code, then we're going to have a higher bar to morality. If it's someone with a lower moral code, then this speaks to what the laws dictate. And I really didn't want to touch on this, but I am in the sense of learning, and it's not to go against anybody or anything. But I want to speak about homosexuality just briefly. When I came up, that was extremely taboo. It was a taboo subject. Um, People didn't talk about it. Did it exist? Of course it did. It's always existed. But it was one of those things that it was like you don't go there, you don't talk about it. Um, we didn't even understand it when I grew up. It was like one of those things that it just wasn't something. It was a taboo thing that, and I mean, and up until recently, we've come. The world has made strides in the way they receive homosexuality and even other things like the transgenderism and just different alternative lifestyles, even tarot. But I want to speak to this because when we grew up, it was a whole different world. I mean, you would be ostracized, you could be shunned, all these different things. But through, as time has moved, this is something now that's pretty much well accepted. This is something that that's not considered, it's considered natural and normal in society, where it was a time where it wasn't. So again, the powers that were, the powers that be, they decide the moral code of society, what's lawful and what's unlawful, what has consequences and what doesn't have consequences. And I'm speaking, let me be clear, right now I'm speaking of the Western world. I'm speaking of Westeros. I'm speaking of America and Europe. Not necessarily all over the world, but even all over the world, but there's different penalties. America has a different lifestyle. Um, we have a different, just a whole way of living than as do Europe, than people in other countries that have more restrictions. It was a time when the things that I do, read tarot cards, speaking out like I'm speaking now, that was considered taboo, and it's still considered taboo in some companies, in some people, the way some people may see it, view it in some schools of thought, some religions, whatever. It's considered to be a negative thing. But my point of even mentioning that is because we deny it and suppress it doesn't mean it don't exist. And denying and suppressing these things within ourselves, this is what allows the shadow to run rampant. And then I'm gonna keep going, and then I'll get to that. And like I said, it's just as an example, because that's the society. I grew up in 79. I was born in 79. So I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. So I saw the world go through a lot of changes. The 80s were when a lot of things began to really change. I'm assuming because things were kind of rigid before that. Well, the 60s was wild, but I'm just speaking to mainstream mindsets. So anyway, um, where was I at? Okay. So to go back to what I was saying, is basically who's in power. The people in power, depending on their moral codes or what their laws are, what they decide. This is basically what dictates what's right and what's wrong. And that includes religion, that includes education, that includes sexuality, that includes spirituality, or just whatever you want to, put into that. Um, Criminal codes. That is to say that good and evil, or again, as I've before stated, is subjective based on what the rule book is being used against and the yardstick that is being measured by at that time or in a relevant era. So I was just basically completing that part of what I said. Okay. Good and evil is subjective. Okay. So basically, good and evil in itself is determined by those who deem it as good and evil. And then of course we have religion that's going into something that's of course one and the same. It's all it all meets up, it's all integrated, but it's different factions of the same thing. Okay. There, of course, has to be order to some degree and rules of engagement, manners, a sense of humanity and kindness that as a society we agree to openly, especially if it infringes on the well-being and safety of another living being. Follow me? Yeah, so it's kind of like even in witchcraft, they got the rule of three, do no harm, right? So yeah, I think I said it. I'm gonna just read this part. But then there are rules. So basically, what I'm saying, as long as there's certain things openly, like in school, we learn manners, we learn thank you, we learn excuse me, we learn, basic manners that we need in society that make society more functionable. But that's not to say that necessarily that saying good morning and thank you and excuse me, that don't mean that it's necessarily good. Like it's only good because we deem it as good. It's good because it works in society. You know what I mean? So, um, but again, there are rules and laws that limits the mindset, spiritual and sexual expressions, and natural ways of living, and prejudices and unfairness that blocks progress, enlightenment, economic progress, medical breakthroughs, etc. So I'm saying, even though we need rules, we need laws, we need things that help society to flow better, so that we are safe, that we are able to communicate, that we're able to progress. But there's also laws that limits the mindsets. And this is, I'm speaking more too, because when you're dealing with things that work better as a whole, like that's what the Age of Aquarius is about too. The downside of Age of Aquarius, it deals with what is needed, or what whoever is in power, whoever making the decisions, what the group needs, what everybody needs on a more collective level. So when you're looking at collective needs and looking at uh, humanity, or looking at it from a larger scale, then sometimes the individual needs of subcultures and individuals get ignored, or they become oppressed in that. So one group's liberation is another group's oppression. Okay. So there's laws that limits the mindset, spiritual and sexual expressions, natural ways of living, and prejudices and unfairness that blocks our progress, enlightenment, economic progress, medical breakthroughs, etc., because it goes against the rule book. Okay. I ain't gonna be talking about this shit too much. But it goes against the rule book that is currently in effect. It's a threat to our current establishment. So it becomes demonized through law, religion, and traditions, social or societal values at that time. And society at times have become so rigid, it tempts people who feel oppressed and silenced. This is a lot. Give me a second, you guys. It's like a lot, even the way I wrote it. So hold up. Let me go back. I just want to go back to what I was stating. I'm speaking of the rule book that society has, which we all know about. And if it's anything that we do think, feel, express ourselves as a threat to the establishment, even women, and I don't want to, I try so hard not to divide male and female, especially in the Black community, because there's so much division between us already. But the fact remains that there's definitely um, there's definitely something off kilter with the way the male and female receive each other, or the way we relate. Is something that's very off by that. And I know that the patriarchy has a lot to do with it. It could just be the power struggle, power dynamics. I don't know. I do know, but it's just so much more to it than that, because we have awareness. And what's keeping those mindsets? Is that part of the gatekeeping of the shadow too? Is that a shadow? Um, the hatred and abuse and oppression of women, is that part of the shadow? I'm asking for not just myself, but for a lot of the women out here that are just trying to find their place in society. Women who don't have husbands, and it ain't because they just so this and so that. It ain't enough men to go around, decent ones. And sometimes it is because we're trailblazers or leaders or powerful people. Um, I never wanted to just be a leader. I wanted to be a part of it, a part of the group. But you know, um, my shadow was stepping into my power. That's part of my shadow. So I hope to inspire other people, male or female, do your thing, because they're gonna always have something to say. And that's my point with these shadowy creatures, humans, and anyway, all of us, we all have the shadow, but understanding that it helps you to release judgment, because we live in judgment so hard, and judging other people, and not focused on our own, you know, um, our own progress, well-being, walk with the spirit, walk with Jesus, walk with whoever you believe in. We're so focused on what another person is doing, and what other people are doing. But that's part of gatekeeping the shadow also. That's also part of gatekeeping the shadow, because we always looking for that scapegoat, the scapegoat to put the blame on, to put our sins on. And that's there go your creation of the devil. Yeah, I said it. There goes your creation of the devil. The devil was created to be the scapegoat for humanity. When in reality, and I kind of got off but it doesn't matter, because it's all the same subject. In reality, the only devil that truly exists is the devil that's inside of you. But because we can't receive that within ourselves, or not wanting to see that flip side of the coin, we have to have that convenient scapegoat to put it on. Just like when I use the example of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde example. Okay. Um, they were very familiar with each other, but he made a choice in which energy he wanted to operate in, which consciousness, which level of consciousness, which spirit in within himself that he wanted to operate in. So that's what it is. Everybody has a choice, and we choose. It's not like, oh, I cheated because the devil made me do it, or you know um I committed all of these heinous crimes because the devil told me to do it. I wonder, there's a fine line between mental illness and these devils we talk about, and not just mental illness, it's straight damn evilness. It's a choice that you make. Anyway, I don't want to get too far off of the bill, and I hope you guys can receive it, male or female. I don't want to, you know, um, insult anybody, because we're all in this together. I'm not exempt. The only difference with me is that I'm learning more and more about my shadow, so I don't have to spend so much time beating other people down, and forcing this and that. And, you know, yeah, people got to get right with themselves. Michael Jackson said it many years ago, you got to start with the man in the mirror, okay? Anyway, so what was I? I said it was kind of like a lot coming out. So I was speaking to the rule book. We got past that. So I was speaking about when it's a current threat to society or the establishment, then that's when it becomes demonized, such as the what you want to call black power. And when I speak to black power, I'm speaking of black empowerment. Not just black empowerment, but when the world began to become enlightened, uh, it was certain powers that fought to keep that closed, to keep that shut down, to keep that behind the gate. Um, and it's so much confusion, because that's how the powers that be want us to be, or the powers that were, they want us to stay confused, stay back and forth, not understanding even the debate of good and evil, or dark and light. Okay, so where was I at? Okay, so I was speaking to, there's been many times where, like even when you talk about the times of the Puritans, or um how rigid things were, when you talk about the Salem's witch trials, and just the heinous evil, because that was evil, very evil, uh to just, they slaughtered and massacred just innocent people, like I say massacred, it was a true witch hunt. I mean, it was crazy. For people, that they just cast these names and demonize different things without even having thorough knowledge. So when I go back to black, because one of the first people in the trial was Tituba, and she was a black woman, or a woman of color for sure, Arawak woman. um and they deemed her as a witch, when really she had metaphysical knowledge. Black women, people don't want to give it to us, but we've been at the helm of metaphysics for many, 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 many moons, at the helm and the head. But that's something different, something else I don't even want to tap into tonight, because of so many fragile egos. But are you about getting this knowledge, or are you concerned more about where it's coming from? If you were really about cause and solution, then it don't even matter. It's about getting what you need to get so you can continue to elevate. All of that ego stuff and I got to get to the finish line first, that's going to keep you locked into a frequency that is low vibrational and it anyway, it operates at a space that hinders our progress. Okay. So anyway, then there's been times in society, I was speaking to the rigidness. When societies are rigid, like the silent generation, when you talk about stuff like silent generation and just early 1900s and just different times in our society, people began to feel so oppressed. Then you give birth to societies that came next. The next era after the silent generation was the baby boomers. And that was a wild generation. You know, it was a wild generation because people were so oppressed. People were so tired of just these, this different, what they felt was negative. And even that, I mean, when you talk about war, is war the shadow, is it necessary? Is it a necessary evil? Hey, you know, I'm not here to debate that. But at the same time, when the people were going crazy in the 60s, people might have thought like, wow, that's, what's going on with them when both sides, the 60s were about self-expression. But again, when the shadow is suppressed for so long, it can become out of control, where that's why I said it has to be a divine balance. But when you put such rigid views and limitations on humans, that is that's the natural thing to do, is to oppress it and bucket, is to find a way, an outlet to express yourself, to express those energies, especially when you're talking about like sex and creativity and who somebody's supposed to love and all of these different things like that. You're going to, you're going to have some backlash or people that's rebelling. And that's where the shadow begins to form, is when you're talking about the gate. And because there's going to be gatekeepers. Let me continue to read, because I've covered this. I don't want to get too far off. Um, so when people feel oppressed and silenced, it makes them buck the system and break the laws. And if enough people feel this way, subcultures or hidden communities or societies are formed in order to liberate themselves from limiting self-expressions. This is when the shadow gains momentum. And that's what I was about to say, but I wanted to read it. This is when the shadow gains momentum and power. And strangely, the lawmakers or so-called great people of power of the world surprisingly end up at some of these same mansion parties, right? Why is that? See, that goes back to what I mean by the gatekeeping of the shadow. The video that I did last week, I spoke to, um, they gatekeep it, but then they also open the gates when it's beneficial. Like when you talk about watching the news, in one sense, it's like, everything is like, oh, that doesn't exist, or oh, this is a random occurrence. But then when we watch the news, we see it coming out like a floodgate all day. Murders and people unaliving their own children, and children unaliving their own parents, and sexual stuff and diddy parties, and you seeing all of these different things. In the government, just all, I mean, on and on and on. Well, with the news perpetuates all day long, which is fear, and control. They want that fear and control over humans. So they use the shadow when it's beneficial for them. But believe me, just like the light is always at work, the shadow is always at work. There's somebody right now having a freak off. Diddy, the freak offs didn't start and stop and begin and end with Diddy, and that's yeah. Anyway, so continuing, I want to reread this last line. I say, strangely, the lawmakers and so-called great people of the world end up at these same mansion parties. And I'm speaking of mansion parties as a just an analogy for just for whatever, just end up doing the same deeds. Like I always speak to that. They talk about, like rich kids and some of the rebellious things that rich kids do, and not having a sense of responsibility or sense of care and feeling like they can just get away with things and break laws. And then they'll talk about the children that's, you know, in the hood, or children that come from or even people in general, but I'm speaking of young people right now that may come from the other side of the track, and they're so much on the other side of the track, or come from homes where there's no structure, where there's no discipline, where they're pretty much doing whatever they want, where they're pretty much talking back or doing whatever they want to do. Parents not even home most of the time. And you'll see some of this also happen in rich homes where the parents are not dealing with the kids, or just different, whatever it is, losing control of their children for whatever reason. um, and then they'll end up in the same place, because again, the shadow cannot be denied. You'll see this is the reason why Hollywood, politics, drug dealers, and and criminals, and all of these people end up in the same parties. It don't matter if they black, white, or other. The thing they got in common is the ability to express that low nature, and sometimes without boundary. I mean, sometimes it's good to be able to go into places where you like to kick it a certain way, and it's good to be able to be comfortable and be like, okay, I smoke weed, but I can't tell the people at work I smoke weed, so I want to go with my stoner friends. In a sense, that's a part of a shadow part of yourself, where you doing your thing. You may enjoy whatever you enjoy sexually, and you do that in your own, you do that in the space where you got people that vibrate in the same way you vibrate. Like myself, I'm into to metaphysics and occultism, even though I love people, and people of different walks of life. It's nothing like being able to build, or even conscious black people, to be able to build in those environments, to bounce off ideas and information, and we have to do some of these things in hidden spaces. But it's very liberating to just be able to be yourself, when I could just take out my tarot cards and not have to hide them. Just whatever that is. And people know they feel good. Whoever I'm talking to, you feel good when you're able to be in a place where you can bring your whole self in the building. Your horns, your tail, your claws, and everything. And that just basically speaking to whatever society may deem is not cool, but you're in a space now where you can do it. It may be a certain kind of music you like, and it's not played on the radio. It's not, back in the day, I remember like dirty rap music. That was like, people be like, passing them tapes. That was definitely not nothing played on the radio. So little kids, they sneaking off in the rooms listening to, rap with cussing in it, and rap that was, derogatory. And even just us in general, we like that shit. That was a part of the shadow. We like gangster rap and things like that may be considered negative, or even just whatever we do in society. I could go on and on with that, but I'm sorry, you guys. I keep moving my arm because I'm trying to fix my sleeves. So anyway, yeah. But my point is, there's really no separation. Then you got those people that are creeping to the scene, like they not sure they want to be in spirituality, or they not sure they down with whatever the alternative lifestyle is, or just whatever it is. They're not, they know it's in them, but they suppress it. And I was a suppressor of a lot of things, not that per se, but just different things that I didn't want to embrace. Like when I first started drinking and different things like that. And the next thing I'm able to just get in my comfort zone. But it was a lot of things that I was kind of like, uh, then I would just, but I'm good with that. But that's what I'm telling you, what brought me to this place that I'm in now, is because suppressing your shadow, period. Whether I mean, it doesn't have to be anything that deals with sex or drugs nor alcohol. The shadow could be certain ways we have, certain traits we have that we hide, but you can only hide it for so long, because the shadow cannot be denied. It's going to come out in different manifestations, just like people that don't deal with grief, trauma, or pain. It's the same thing. It becomes a shadow, the shadow energy within yourself, and it becomes other things. And that's why I said, I'm not saying that evil doesn't exist by no stretch, because I've used the term evil a few times, but I wanted to focus more on the darkness and shadow, not necessarily being evil. That's not, just because something is in the dark or something is in the shadow, don't make it evil. Okay. It's only evil by whoever moral code you're going by. But what I want to say is that when you suppress the shadow, you 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 began to create an atmosphere where things can grow into evil. Things can grow into evil because it can't be denied, and you're doing all you can to suppress it and keep it in, for whatever reason. Okay, so since they too are suppressing their own natures, um, many of the ones who are the so-called good rigid rule makers are the same ones hosting these opportunities to express their dark deeds, whether it's drugs, sex, violence, trafficking. And this is how the underworld, or so-called underbelly of society, was formed. You get what I'm saying? Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense to you. Um, I was basically saying that these rule makers, or whomever, that's whether it's the church, the government, whomever it is that make these rules, these so-called good rigid rules, are the same ones hosting opportunities for to express their dark deeds, rather it's through parties, drugs, sex, violence, trafficking, etc. This is how the underworld and so-called underbelly of society was formed. When you create too much restriction, you incite much rebellion. Okay. And I'm saying this is how it was formed because, I mean, what other way could it be formed? Either we living out loud and living our truth and living in the light and the shadow and doing what we do, or are there someone who makes the rules? It may have been a time when the rules weren't in place, so society was more wild. And I did speak of the '60s, but not even just in the '60s. I can even speak to slavery. um, in slavery, things were definitely rigid and there was much oppression. But I do also know, I've read about the orgies, and they would use our spiritual gatherings, which is not necessarily for orgies, but people will fall into this spiritual and sexual frenzy sometime, and it came down to that. People were like wowing because even white people was joining slaves, and in these parties, if you will, or gatherings or rituals, because they were so oppressed and suppressed. They were expressing themselves. It was the only time they can feel free and feel good. So even though that's not something I want to ever partake in, an orgy, it's I can understand and intellectualize. Even like the people back then, they don't talk about it a lot. But when you speak to a lot of people that were homosexual, um, and I was reading about these soldiers, and reading about seeing pictures and stuff, that again, the shadow being suppressed. Um, and it was sad to me because they had people that, I mean, you've even seen it with Celie and Suge Avery. It wasn't so much about sexuality, it transcended that. It was about another human being needing love and affection, and anything, because they're at such a low place of not being able to express anything or feel anything to a degree. So that's the way it played out for some people. For others, they did what they did. They found spouses, or and sometimes was separated from them. So it was a rough condition. But I just wanted to speak to, these are the ways that the shadow is born. Okay. And I'm not gonna make this live too much longer. Once I get through this information, and this the reason why is because this is a heavy subject to me, and to other people that may not, this may not be their, what they subscribe to. So I wanted to just kind of sit and really think about it, because I'm gonna go a couple of more places that may be more uncomfortable in the next two live bills. And then after this, I'm gonna get off the shadow, but I thought it was necessary. I'm rocking with it through October. So okay, so let's get through the information that I wrote out. Okay, so I was speaking about, yeah, when we, these opportunities for these subcultures and these gates even to be formed, because we talk about gatekeeping the shadow. The gatekeeping part, like I said, is the way society will put you in a space where they're going to keep you in check over the same things that they're partaking in. They're going to talk about it. They're going to make it loud for you. Like, look at what this person's doing. And the same people sitting here talking crap about P. Diddy, they probably having freak offs right now. I'm just saying, okay? Not for everybody, but Definitely not for everybody, but I'm just saying it's that cluster of people that they do a lot of stuff, everything under the sun. And maybe it is a majority of people. I don't know. I don't know what people do, but I know that it's here, it's real, it's reality because we're seeing it playing out. And we're seeing, people affected by it when it's kept quiet, not just that, but just other things. It's a lot that I want to touch on. Um, but tonight it says, so why do they gatekeep? Why do they gatekeep? Seems like a paradox, since all humans, whether in power or not, has a shadow or a dark side to their nature. But no one wants to be considered bad or unvirtuous or even ungodly, like the Emperor's New Clothes. And I know you guys know the story of the Emperor's New Clothes. Most people know the Emperor's New Clothes. And if you don't, just um I'll go into that afterwards. But like the Emperor's New Clothes, no one can bear the pain of truth or embarrassment of being the one who is exposed, yet everyone is guilty. So, the Emperor's New Clothes, or I mean, mostly everybody has heard the Emperor's New Clothes. It's a childhood story. I'll just go over it real quickly. Um, the gist of it, the Emperor's New Clothes is about a king who was very vain, which is already a shadow trait. Um, he loved to wear all of these new clothes, and he would like change clothes every hour. He was just obsessed with this vanity of looking good, to the point that he didn't even take care of his people. He wasn't even involved in the matters that a king should be involved in, and taking care of his kingdom. He was too busy looking good, right? So they had some swindlers that came to town, and it's funny because the swindlers is also of the shadow. Or are they? Or are they? You know what I mean? This is a perfect story for duality. So the swindlers come into town, and they're like, they have all of this beautiful fabric, and they're showing off these threads, and oh, we can do this, and we can make you this special wardrobe of clothing, because he was always looking for seamstresses and new outfits and new ideas to show off to his kingdom. This dude would like literally go out here strutting his stuff in front of the kingdom that he not even uh nurturing, to show off his new clothes. He was a fool with it. So here you come. The swindlers are going in about these special clothes. He said, but the deal is, these clothes are invisible to the unvirtuous, basically. Are uh even said it would pick, anybody that can't see this fabric is an unvirtuous person, or even dim-witted, and you'll find out who are the people that's shouldn't be in certain positions that you appointed them. You're going to see all of this through this fabric. If you have a righteous heart, if you are a righteous person, and you're going to be able to see how beautiful the fabric is, and how beautiful these this clothing is, right? So he's like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, because he's vain and he's also prideful. So here we go again with pride. But these are the swindlers teaching him a lesson. So they pretend to, they're sewing up all the clothes and making his wardrobe, but it's all pretend. They're not, it's all invisible. They're just doing this, and but his pride is so great that he pretends to see it. Like once they bring him these invisible clothes that they didn't make, they just swindle him out of all of his money. He's all like, oh yeah, it was beautiful, I see it, invisible clothes. He's literally taking little invisible pants and holding them up, and putting them on, and it's just crazy, right? So he's all excited about these new virtuous clothes that he can see, but he can't see, right? Because there's nothing there to see. So he explains it to the crowd or the kingdom, and these people, like when I'm talking about how society operates, and just how we will try to disassociate ourselves from truth in an effort to be correct, in an effort to be we'll be comfortable with a lie if it puts us in a good light, versus being honest, because it may risk being exposed, right? So obviously he's wearing the new clothes, and he's going out, showing the kingdom his new gear. And he's, a little round chubby man, and he butt naked, like butt booty naked, right? And I'm sure the people was gasping on the inside because clearly they can see that this man is butt naked. But nobody in this kingdom would admit it. Like they all just dealt with the lie. Oh God, you look so good. They sitting there like, oh yeah, oh wow, that's beautiful. All in an effort to appear virtuous when they operating in this shadow the whole time because they're living this lie. They won't be honest. They got the king making a damn fool of himself. So to that detriment, right? Not no one would even tell him about himself. That's just how they was operating. And then it took a pure hearted child to step out of the crowd and says, but he isn't wearing any clothes. So that's the emperor's new clothes. And he's only a child had the heart to even speak the truth. So let me go ahead and wrap this up because I'm coming to an end. Um, so it says they would rather pretend not to see the truth than to wear their own shadow. So they would live in their lies, which is dark, than to deviate from society by being the truth. But only a child with a pure heart was able to speak the truth as plain as it was seen. But this is exactly the attitude that perpetuates the darkness. I mean, excuse me. This is exactly the attitude that perpetuates and darkens the shadow. And yes, you can actually darken your shadow. That's what I'm speaking to. The shadow isn't evil. The saying the dark side isn't evil. It's when you uh when you don't bring the shadow out to be healed or to understand it, to bring awareness to it or know how to integrate it. When you deny that it's not there. To deny the shadow is what creates this form of evil. So yes, you can darken and corrupt the shadow. People tend to automatically think that the shadow and darkness and duality automatically represents evil when it just represents that which is hidden. Okay. People tend to automatically think that the shadow, darkness, duality automatically represents evil when it just represents that which is hidden. Just like the word occult, not cult, but occult, OCCULT. It represents those sciences, that which is hidden, not necessarily evil. Okay. But this is what we've been indoctrinated to believe. And this is because the shadow is being controlled and the gate kept it. It doesn't mean it goes away. Let me go back again. Just because, I mean, excuse me, let me see. I kind of missed my place, you guys. One moment. People tend to automatically think the shadow, darkness, and duality automatically represents evil when it just represents that which is hidden. And you know what also as a black woman what irritates me with that is because the word darkness is such a blanket statement to the point that even a dark skinned person, a dark person, people my color darker than me, dark, black, whatever, people of color, but really dark, like dark, dark people, anything that comes from the celestial ilk of anything that comes not celestial, but anything that comes from the black school of thought, anything that we create that's not of um, this so-called purity, especially of that which the Christians uphold, then is automatically considered evil. It's automatically considered something bad, which is very unfortunate because that's erroneous. Okay. Um, So I want to go back. People tend to automatically think the shadow, darkness, and duality automatically represents evil when it just represents that which is hidden. This is because when the shadow is being controlled and the gate keeps it, it doesn't mean it goes away. So just because it's being gate kept doesn't mean it's going to go away. It does the opposite. It grows into something so burdensome, a monster or a demon can be born. When the shadow or darkness is not nurtured or brought into the light for healing or awareness, it creates or activates the evil trigger, which in E5 we call the Ajagoon. You have Orisha and then you have Ajagoon, which is the other side of the high angelic force. You create the demon in it, the demon force of it, because it's not in balance. And when the demon force comes out, or what we call the demonic, or Christians would say demon, but these lower forces is because, or it does become a form of a demon of the Ajagoon because you're not in balance. it's you're too much to the left or too much to the right, but it's not in balance. It's not in harmony. So when your yin needs a little bit of yang and your yang needs a little bit of yin, yeah, you create an imbalance. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to build on, you guys. I hope it was smooth enough and understandable. Now, I just wanted to close on the situation. I'm not going to go deep into like the P. Diddy, R. Kelly, none of that stuff. But I do want to just say, I am going to say this about it. You know, it's very troublesome to me because um, on a lot of sides, on many sides, it's almost hard to process because you have people that want to clutch their pearls and shit when they find out about P. Diddy and R. Kelly and different people. But how long did we know that this shit was taking place? How long did we assume? How long did we know that P. Diddy is a bisexual man? We already knew that. I don't know why it's like so, oh, um, and that he was also now maybe some of the creepier stuff, no, we may not have known all of that in detail. But we definitely knew R. Kelly was pissing on girls 20 years before he ever went to jail for it, you know. So I don't understand what the shock is, but then on another side of that whole multi-layered thing that's so complex and just crazy to me, then you have people that supposed to be so righteous and supposed to be, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm a this, I'm a that, you're a witch, this is evil, all of this stuff like that. But these are the main people defending these people that do this shit. Y'all defending the deviants to the point like pick a side. I don't, it's so confusing to me. And I don't really care what people pick. I don't care what you think is right or what you think is wrong. But I will say this. You need to check your own shadow before you start coming at other people about their shadows or what they do is wrong. Because that's when you create your own hell. That's when you're living in sin. And to deny your shadow is living in your sin, is living in bondage. That's when you create the monster within yourself. And just one more thing, I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I just want Black people to really pay attention to what's going on, because anytime we didn't create this pie. This is something here. I'm speaking to Americans, especially, and Black Americans, especially, and any others that come to America. You know, we always think that we can do all of these things to get a seat at the table, but I want this to be a lesson to all of us as a community. You know, P. Diddy ain't come up with this shit on his own. This is stuff that, if you look at the origin of Hollywood, and not just Hollywood, Western culture and society, they're deviants. The American dream was doing a lot of this stuff that people are now saying is that P. Diddy has done. Mansion parties ain't even nothing new. This is something that's been going on since, especially the induction of Hollywood. But again, people suppress the shadow. If y'all want to see some real nasty work, check out Aretha Franklin's daddy and what he had going on in church. You know what I'm saying? It's been, this ain't no new stuff. And we already know what was going on during slavery. They was forcing slaves and stuff to have freak offs. Come on, let's talk about it. They was forcing slaves in the plantation to have freak offs. But now all of a sudden it's some foreign out. So now we see that the shadow is out, and now what we're gonna do about it? How are we gonna respond to it now? How are we gonna move now? We're gonna continue to hide it and gatekeep it? Are we gonna continue to let people partake in it and know they're partaking? See, that's the part that pissed me off, and I hate that we can't be smarter when they were learning the lifestyle and getting into this rich and famous stuff. These are things that people were already doing in there, but doing in this lifestyle, doing in these places. But some people don't. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it was just no boundaries. It just straight up out of control. But don't get it twisted. This ain't no new shit, and it ain't no black shit. It's something that, like I said, it's some human shit right now, and it's things that y'all about to see more and more of this type of stuff manifesting, people being exposed. But the great part about the shadow being exposed is we can now take care of people that's been solidly victimized, not just in Hollywood or in the famous world, but in our homes every day. I'm talking not our homes, but just in communities. They got children that and people that are dealing with some serious shit that's going on every single day, but it's quietly kept, and it's been like that for generations. And it doesn't have to be just sexual, rather whatever the abuse or the nasty work that's being done behind the scenes is, it gives people an opportunity to to really embrace, well, not embrace, but to, well, I guess is embracing the shadow, but it gives you a chance to examine yourself, to examine the world, to examine who we look to as heroes and role models, to examine what we've been taught. I mean, yeah. So I'm gonna end there, I guess, and hopefully, you guys get something out of it. Peace, love, and light. I will be on again for Tarot Talk Thursday, and also I'll be back on Metaphysical Monday. The next bill will be called I don't know if y'all ready for this one, but it's called uh I want to talk about the I forgot what I called it, but it's basically speaking to does God have a shadow? That's what it is. Does God have a shadow? And yeah, I'm gonna go deep on that. So you guys, thank y'all for watching, tapping in. Feel free to leave comments if you like the content. Please send me a like. If you are not subscribed to Kolagraphy TV, please subscribe. Yeah, Ashe. Peace.